Hi guys, welcome back. Today the object of the video will be something unusual, something that probably all of you will like to have in the collection, but it's probably a little bit tricky to have this model in the collection. And that's why, the reason is because this is the Mercedes evo2 version car that have been originally made by Fujimi. Fujimi made a lot of these 90s queen of the tracks, but the kit, if you got them, if you have them, you already know that are a little disappointing, because too many details are missing and a lot of other parts are really problematic to be placed in the proper position. So when I get this model, they made a reissue of this Mercedes 190E. I think something like 10 years ago. It was the black box, if you find them around in eBay and so on. It was the black car on the box art, and it's very nice. I think they used the picture of the actual car because the painting is absolutely very, very nice and aggressive, so if you see just the picture, is really a reason to have the car. But I wanted to do something a little more colored, probably for license reasons and so on. In the reissue of the boxes, they don't place any decal, any racing decal and so on, so you have to fix by your own, buying aftermarket decals from Studio 27 or 27, sorry, say that in Italian, 27, 27, the number of Jubilee is always in the heart, so it's always easy for an Italian to say 27 instead of 27. And as I said, so you have to provide, to buy an extra decal sheet, for this model, because there is nothing provided in the box, at least on the box that I had. Fujimi also made some boxes that became quite pricey during the years, and I have no idea of the quality of the decal included inside the boxes, so I don't know if it was something that is worth it to invest the money in the original box, so it's enough that you just buy the reissue and then you fix by your own with extra aftermarket decal, There is something to say about this model I made. I mean, you see that, and in the background there was the Alpha, that was the enemy, the enemy factory, during these racing years of German DTM cars, that later became the ITC, International Touring Championship, And the interesting part to say is that this model that you are looking is not the original model from Fujimi, so it's not the body part that you will find inside the original Fujimi box. And we have to talk a little about the modification that I made to this model. Maybe I want to see if I can, if I remember to place the frames but there is, I think, another video about this Mercedes, the one just with the music, when you just you don't hear my ugly voice trying to explain, but you just see the picture of the model in progress, and then you know that, for example, all the roof area have been cutted on the A pillar, on the C pillar, and lifted off a couple of millimeters at least, this to give, in my opinion, a proper proportion to the car. So I took a blueprint of the actual Mercedes 190 DTM, and over that I place a picture, a shot that I took of the body from the Fujimi kit. And I see that it was really disappointing because, for example, the dimension of the rear windows here, of the rear windows on the rear door, was completely different, as well as the proportion of the front side windows was completely mistaken, in my opinion, So the first step was, of course, to lift properly the roof of the car. If you see, I mean, I'm trying to explain you, but if you see a blueprint and what you get inside the car, you see that at once what I'm referring to, In the same way, you have to modify the rear wing. That seems easy because now it seems like an ordinary part. Instead, it have been cut in two pieces, and enlarged. And of course, to do this work, you basically have to point the fitting point on the bumper here on the rear trunk, and then see how and in which way that come up on the way to give the proper shape to this specific big wing for portants, I think it was, that they used during the racings, One of the most tricky part ever, in my opinion, was to fix mostly was to fix mostly the front bumper, you know, because if you look carefully at the picture, the Fujimi made basically the A group body a little enlarged, you know. They also made, and that is quite nicer, I think, than the DTM car. The real car was, of course, less interesting and less aggressive than the DTM car, but the A group, I think it was the name of the box provided from Fujimi. I think I have that box with the Leighton House livery, that strange blue-green from Leighton House, and it is an A group car, so without any enlargement flares over the wheels, and with different nose. I mean, if you just check on the internet about the picture of the actual car, you understand at once which are these difference I'm spotting right now, you know. So for the DTM vehicle, you have basically to cut completely the front bumper and recreate it much more longer final end of the front bump. You see, I mean, that part, if you look at the plastic you have in the kit, they are not fitting at all that way. Add to this that when you made this detail, I mean, my point is that with this kind of videos I would like to give you some hints, some tips on where to work. Then it's up to you, of course, if to make it or not, if you think that I made it wrong, if you think that you cannot make it, if you think that can be a hack, can be a mess. So I just want to give you my points on where I concentrate in changing the parts of the model. You know, in other kits, like for example in the Alpha, you don't need absolutely the stuff. In that beast down there in the M3 GT2, you don't need anything, despite it's not a kit, it's just a body, you know, and we will talk also about that model later on in the next videos, you know. But about this Mercedes, instead, you have a completely, in my opinion, wrong shape. There was also some modelers, I think from Germany, that started to make this car mixing the Fujimi body and the Eishi body. They are not bad at all. I mean, the Eishi body is about the street car, so you have to cut all the flares and replace that over the body of Eishi. But at least in the Eishi model, I think that all the area of the roof is already fixed, you know. And if you just work with a couple of millimeter, in my opinion, is a couple of millimeter, the part that you have to modify on the pillars, you neither need to change the transparent part, because the lifting of the roof doesn't become a problem in the fitting of the transparent part. So it's enough that you just made some dry fits. I also cut the inner part to make them fit even better, the inner side of the transparents, and it was quite okay. I mean, the shape was done, so in my opinion it was quite okay, you know. Another issue that you have to fix, it is that this model provided by Fujimi, it's a little ridiculous. Nothing bad with Fujimi. Fujimi made excellent model, you know. They are a great company, Japanese company, very, very cool stuff. So, but they are in business since many, many years, and like all the companies producing stuff since decades, of course, when you cross a mold that is coming from the late 80s, beginning of the 90s, you are related to something that is absolutely old, so you cannot expect a quality like the modern stuff that we can afford today, that we can buy today about racing car, you know. So for example, in this type of model, they use it to share the same interior parts that is neither a real interior, it is just a black floor with whatever look-alike seat. It's nothing racing, so you have to completely rebuild everything about the Mercedes, you know. That's why probably it will be interesting for companies like the Nunu Platz to think about producing some DTM car, because they have a very, very big group of modelers that like this series, that like this vehicle. Me also, I would like to build another one, another livery, maybe the black one, the Sonax car, you know. There is several that have to be made, you know, but I don't want to have a nightmare like it was to make this model. I mean, now I'm completely satisfied with it, but believe me, to arrive at the end of this easy, simple little car model, it was absolutely a journey. It was something that was really, really painful for too many reasons, for too many points. So you have to rebuild completely, as we said, the roll cage in the interior part, everything. So to do it, I helped myself buying a spare extra sprue from eBay. There was time ago a French guy that used it to sell the separate sprues and parts from other Tamiya kits. So I bought the interior parts and the wheels from the AMG C-Class DTM from Tamiya. Tamiya made an excellent model of the Mercedes C-Class, you know. They also became a little rare and quite pricey today. I think always because of the reason of the sponsor involved in that model. So for example, I remember they made also there the Sonax car, the dark green one. They made the yellow Pro Market car, and what else? I think another one or two. Also Fujimi did the C-Class, but of course when you have the choice between Fujimi and Tamiya, in my personal opinion, I nearly always choose Tamiya because they are, in general, little better engineered, you know. It's a nicer model, so it's much more easy. You are not so lucky with this Mercedes, so if you want to do something that was a little older, Mercedes was the queen of this series, so they had nearly no opponent. They just had the BMW, but it was a kind of really German business, kind of German matter, you know, to have this championship. That's why it was the DTM was the name of the international tourism car in Germany. D means for Deutsche. Just later they became international, they started to use English name, but right before it was just German series. As I said also, so the wheel and the tires are coming then from the Tamiya AMG C-Classe, so that is not part from the kit. And last but not least, I had a nightmare with the livery of this car, because I wanted to do the car that was driven by Kurt Team and Ellen Lahr. It was the only lady racing in that series in the 80s, you know. The problem was that the original decal sheet that I took, it was from DMC. I think it is a Danish company making decal, and I was unlucky with them, not because they were bad. I mean, the design was absolutely perfect, well done and whatever, but probably I suspect that the guy printed the decal sheet that I was trying to use several years before I actually used it, so the result was a disaster. I placed the decal inside the ordinary water to try to work with it, and was a nightmare. Everything went destroyed. So I completely scrapped the model. It was not finished, so I completely take it down everything I could. I completely washed the car and take away the paint and everything. You know, it was destroyed, it was damaged, and I bought an extra spare decal sheet from Studio 27 this time about this West car, and I completely remade it. But you know, when this stuff happens, sometimes you really get so pissed off and disappointed that you don't want to see the model any longer. So it was stopped for up to 1 year, I think, because I didn't want to see this model again. I just wanted to finish it and to have it like it is today, you know. So if something goes wrong, then became really a nightmare. Also I think the interior parts, if you can see something, let me see if the telephone can make it. If you see the interior part, there, as I said, all the cockpit must be completely rebuilt, and the same so for the seat belts, the steering wheel, everything. In your original Fujimi model, you don't have anything about this stuff, and unfortunately, and different from the BMW M3 E30 of the same series, you will not have any Studio 27 racing part, racing detail kit to try to correct these issues, you know. So you have basically two opportunities: or you simply build up like it is from the box, you close your eyes, you close your nose, and simply build up, let it be, and keep it as it is. But if you want to do something a little more detailed, then you really have to apply, then you really have to get mad in trying to fix the line and the shape of this wonderful Mercedes of the 80s, you know. That's it. I think it's anyway. Yeah, I forgot also to mention, you know, another issues that I had, and I was quite okay with it at the end, was that this Mercedes, of course, they didn't provide any photo etched part, so it was a little tricky to fix the star, the typical star on the bonnet of the Mercedes. So, and that was a photo etched part that I find inside. I think it was a photo etched part in 143 or 132 from an American fighter plane. So it was an Edward brass photo etched part that I used from. I was lucky with that, because you know, you have to have also a little fantasy when you search around your scrap box and leftover parts to see something that you can use, you know. And that's it. I personally love these cars, and I hope you enjoy the video, and see you in the next one.